I'm now 42 years old, and I went right through my 20s, gradually losing my hair, to the point then in my 30s it pretty much all gone. The kid comes on the speakerphone and I say, "Oh, Matthew," and he comes back quick as anything and says, "Shut up, Baldilovks."
Welcome everyone. This is the Change Show with your host Simon Phillips and my special guest Dan Newman. Dan, fantastic to meet you. We've spoken. We caught up last week, didn't we? But it's great to have you here on the show, live with our guests here, whether they are the podcast or whether they're watching on YouTube. You're all very welcome. And as you know, I like to interview people who are out there being change makers, because I think if we can find out what they're up to, it might just inspire us to do something that we really want to do as well and find some people that we can help. So Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for the welcome. I appreciate it, Simon.
Dan Newman is a director of RSP, a fire safety company based in Caerphilly in South Wales. Following a physical assault in his youth, Dan developed alopecia and suffered many years of personal trauma and anxiety as he came to terms with losing his hair as a very young man. However, his experience also led him to create BALDILOCKS, a not-for-profit venture to restore lost confidence for men and women. Okay, so Dan, tell me, where are we finding you on this wonderful, well, it's raining where I am. Where are you today?
I'm actually in my office in Caerphilly currently, but I live in Bridgend, and sometimes the weather in Caerphilly isn't as nice as it is in Bridgend, even though it's so close. That's the beauty of the variation of the Welsh weather here in our region, isn't it, Simon? Yeah.
Dan, when we were first introduced to each other, I think it was Instagram we spotted each other. I can't remember now, but you've got a great account on there, and I love some of the little videos you've put up. Tell us a little bit more about yourself that wasn't necessarily in the formal introduction.
Yeah, of course. So, you mentioned my Instagram page. It's very much at its beginning, and I really need to get a lot more content on there to match up with what I've been achieving over the past few months with my new venture. My venture, as you will see on my Instagram page, is BALDILOCKS, which is kind of a humorous take on what I'm trying to really bring out into public, really, which is the idea of hair loss trauma. The name is a little blunt, and it can be a sensitive topic, but I'm really going with the notion of owning it, reminding yourself that you are always you, regardless of how your appearance may change over the years. Yeah, you deserve to be as confident and as included in everything that you once were now. So yeah, that's essentially the idea of the venture, and a lot of people are showing a lot of interest in it. It seems to be quite powerful.
Tell us a little bit more about the origins of this then for you, Dan. I mean, obviously, for those who are watching on YouTube, they might have some clues as to why you've called your business BALDILOCKS. But for those listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever they are today, what's the origin of the business?
Okay, so when I was a child, I had moments of experiencing hair loss, patches on my scalp, and it would just come and go. And I kind of feel like it was probably a blend between an overloaded sort of nervous system. I was quite an anxious, withdrawn child at times, and a very introverted teenager then, and probably a faulty immune system. So those things combined has come out for me as alopecia. I'm now 42 years old, and I went right through my 20s, gradually losing my hair, to the point then in my 30s it pretty much all gone. But you see the particular trauma, I suppose, that I experienced when I was 18 that triggered this phase of loss really was that I was a victim of an unprovoked assault from two guys in my home village in Bedwas near Caerphilly. And so it was a real process then to try and come to terms with that, and right through my 20s, like I say. And so I've got the alopecia. I've got no eyebrows, no eyelashes, barely any scalp hair, and I'm kind of past the pain. It's taken time to get there, but what really empowers me now is knowing that I'm in a space where I can be of service to others who are experiencing the same thing. But to be honest, it doesn't have to be alopecia. It doesn't even have to be hair loss. It could be just how you perceive yourself to be different as you're getting older. There can be visual differences in you. It could be scarring, could be hair loss. It could be all sorts of things which have had an effect on your confidence. And suddenly now You find yourself not being able to go into barber shops, salons, spas. So really, my mission is to get people's confidence back, so they can recognize that the person staring them in the mirror might look a little different, but it's still very much the same person, and they deserve to be loved and involved and cared for. So that's Baldilocks.
As you say, a 42-year-old guy being bald is less obvious, if you like, in amongst company than an 18-year-old or a 20-something with hair loss in different places. I guess the only distinctive piece now would be the lack of eyebrows and things like that. But in general, it wouldn't stand out as much. Was it the standing out that was the problem with the confidence, or was it the actual assault and the after effects of that? What was it that was the main thing for you?
Kind of a blend of both, really. When I had hair, it was like my eldest boy's hair, and Dexter's 12 years old, and he's got like this really great thick hair, quite dark brown hair, and I often complained about it, not being able to do anything with it because it was just like it would just grow like a microphone, I
Yeah.
couldn't style it or anything like that. So cosmetically, there was an awareness that things are changing. With alopecia, it's quite a taunting condition. Now, for some, all fall out very quickly, which presents its own unique challenges. It's a very sudden shift of, wow, I don't just look different, but actually I kind of maybe look ill. And it's a whole idea of having to reintroduce yourself almost to people that you might not have seen for some time because you've changed so much. But with me, I had a taunting type of alopecia, more specifically, I would say, where it's patchy on the head and those patches move around. So when you think it's coming back, it then falls out. So you can never really come to terms with it very quickly. When you talk about the assault, there is that point as well that every time a new patch appeared or got bigger, it reminded me of the incident that was particularly violent. To be honest with you, I went into a state of freeze. Really, I didn't fight or run, fight or flight. I froze. And that's taught me a lot about coping mechanisms. And as I say, thankfully, because I had quite a loving support network around me around that time, the actual attack didn't linger so much in my mind. There was the fact that my body decided to present it back to me in the mirror for years to come. And if I may just say, Simon, I think with alopecia, because it's often been deemed as a cosmetic issue, a lot of alopecia sufferers often have to make up their own story, really, in trying to figure out why it's come
Right.
about. But I can certainly tell you, though, that alopecia, amongst other conditions, it's not something that sits on top of joy, strength, and all the happy stuff. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
life is going great. Oh, now I got alopecia. Wow. And, it's, it's not like a prize for doing so well. It often sits on top of despair rather than joy. And for some, and I'm glad I had the support and the resilience to get through it. But for some, it can be a straw that breaks the camel's back, So it was a challenging period, especially in my 20s.
For younger people, especially, and I don't imagine that this changes dramatically over time, but I guess for a younger person, it almost becomes a constant conversation as well. So every time you meet somebody, you can't just get into what you might perceive to be a normal conversation. Instead, you probably feel like you've got to get into the alopecia conversation, or they may feel they have to, or you want to put them at ease, or whatever the circumstances may be. It still becomes something that you're talking about way more than you would be otherwise.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot to be said around you attract what you seek. And when I was in my particular period of intensity and trying to come to terms with it all, there was a lot of being in my own head a little too much, being perhaps hypersensitive, being a little withdrawn, wear a beanie hat in summertime because people might look. And then people are going to look because guess what? I'm wearing a beanie hat in summertime. I kind of found a way, again, with support. I mean, I was so grateful for my wife. We were friends for years before we got together, and she was really a very early coach for me, to be honest, in helping me come to terms with my change in identity. Because again, it's not just on the surface change; it's a psychological challenge. So yeah, the conversation comes up, the reintroduction, but I actually found it easier to deal with it with a sense of humor. and to not like just like ram it down people's throat. Oh, hi, I'm Dan. By the way, yes, I don't have eyebrows or eyelashes, and I have no hair. It's like didn't even notice. Don't care. Yeah. There's a lot to be said around being receptive to the people who love you, respect you, care for you. Being receptive to people who are curious,
Yeah.
that don't lead with judgment, and being mindful that there are people who don't know how to interact with people with visual differences. So it's not on you to be a host to them.
Yes.
If they ask you questions, be privileged that you're able to educate them.
And that's what I was going to ask you next. If you flip it around, what did you find to be the best approaches that others made, or the best ways that others found to deal with you and their own thoughts, if you like, in the moment? What worked for you, if you like?
Okay, there were a number of things, to be honest. So I would certainly encourage people to get to a state of acceptance as quick as they can. That I have this condition. It's shaping me, really, shaping my character, shaping my maturity. It doesn't define you. It's an aspect of you. It's not your full identity. So therefore, do lean into experiences that are going to make you a little uncomfortable at times, because that's going to accelerate the growth. So if I was to be more specific, I didn't get a lot of support with that journey really from my GP at the time. So I really relied on people I worked with, my family, my friends. And when it came to, I suppose, dealing with people for the first time who had just an innocent curiosity, I really liked it when people didn't perhaps like have this lingering stare at a patch on my head and then, try and awkwardly communicate around it. I actually like when people said, "Oh, hi Dan, yeah, okay, nice to meet you," and a little chit chat, tell me more about you, etc., etc. And then if they just happen to say, "Oh, look, I can see you got a couple of patches on your head there. Can I ask what that's about?" What I would encourage not to happen is the little side eye stare and then a quick look away, when you're acknowledged. And to be honest, the people who I have come across in the past, either unhelpful professionals or idiots on the train, you know, or idiots in a passing van calling you names. I've had a number of instances that would put me off folk, but they are a minority. And
Yeah.
I feel the confidence and the strength that you gain from the people around you and from your own experiences means that those moments just disappear really in time. So
As you say, there are always some people who we can put in that box of just being idiots. But by and large, I think what we are finding these days increasingly is that people are way more open than they were certainly when I was growing up. If any difference whatsoever ensured that you were picked out primarily by young people who hadn't, yet been through the world and matured, as you say. But yeah, difference was something that was picked out and picked on. And increasingly, I'm noticing, especially amongst my kids and their peers, there's far more receptivity to being different, which can only be a good thing.
yeah, I would agree with that. I believe that, and I've seen a number of things throughout my life so far where, I could become more cynical. I could become more withdrawn, more disconnected. But I kind of recognize that the real value in life is through being open to experience, being open to connecting with a community of like-minded people. You will find that people have more in common than they have that separates them. But I kind of starting to understand now that people are more interested now, I think, in their well-being and being of service to community a lot more than perhaps we were before COVID.
What was the origin story for this business? Now, obviously, there's your own story, if you like, but what was the tipping point for you to say, I'm going to do something here, that something positive?
So when I was in Bridgend, where I live now, I saw a barbers much like that, and I thought, do you know what? Yes, I'm gonna make something happen here. I'm gonna reconnect people to these places, and then started my pursuit then of seeing how I could do that. Now, the best way of of experimenting with ventures or change such as this is for you to be in the hot seat and
Mm.
experience it for yourself. So I did actually find a barbers in the end in Cardiff, called Capello, which on their website, funnily enough, translates as a single hair on the head. So if that's not a sign, then I don't know what is. And in my Instagram page, there's a 2-part video of me going into the barbers for the first time in 20 years and experiencing that, going in, sitting amongst people, being the only bald guy in the room, sitting amongst people that, just chatting with the barbers, having a cut and a shave. And I went in there, and Katharina, she gave me that fantastic hot towel, cold towel, close shave experience. And honestly, it was really emotional. It was very emotional to be in that space. But having that experience just made me think, yeah, there's other people need to benefit from this uplifting inclusivity. So I came
Yeah.
out there feeling great. So there was that. The name comes from my little boy's friend. Baldilocks is the name, and that came about because I was. I mean, what 42-year-old man banters with a 12-year-old, right? That's a measure of a man I am, Simon. I think. And the kid comes on the speakerphone, and I say, "Oh, Matthew," just kind of mocking his accent a little bit, and he comes back quick as anything and says, "Shut up, Baldilocks." And I thought, I'll take that. That's fair. And I took it, and I've developed the brand Baldilocks because, as I said earlier, it is about owning it. It's about a bit of humor. But the idea is that when you see a Baldilocks sticker on a barber shop window, for example, and I'll talk about the other places where you might find it shortly, I want that to be a symbol of um, that you're welcome, a symbol of inclusivity. So that's kind of really what I'm developing.
You've also talked about spas there. That I think that was one of the videos I caught on Instagram. We were chatting about that last week. So why a spa?
Okay, so there was a natural leaning towards barbershops because I'm a man, okay, and women go to barbers as well. There's it's certainly not a female exclusion zone in barbershops or anything, but there's a particular leaning towards doing what I can to help men's mental health, which is a big topic. Um, and the barbershops was the initial attraction, but then I thought, well, okay, what I can achieve here is restoring lost confidence in women as well as men. So I kind of felt that I can't just ignore a good section of the community when I'm talking about inclusivity.
Mm.
And I think when you are establishing a venture, a lot of people say, oh, really get into your niche and stay in that lane. And I think there is value in that. But actually, I think it's quite a momentum you build when you recognize that you can be of greater service to a greater amount of people.
So how can people, if they've got thoughts on this, Dan, if they've got any ideas, how can they get in touch?
Okay, so I would absolutely encourage people to follow me on Instagram. My tag is at baldilocks.me. And please visit my landing page, which gives you an opportunity to sign up to a waiting list. And that's at www.baldilocks.me. And I will keep people informed. I will interact with people to see what we can do to improve services and products. And there will be thank yous and gifts along the way for people who are early to subscribe, who believe in the mission and want to be a part of the movement.
Dan, thanks for sharing that. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people, both with your own story and what you're now doing. Because I think the point here is, you've seen something that you've decided, okay, what difference could I make? And it's not about sort of sitting back and thinking, well, there's nothing I can do. You've actually just thought that through and thought, well, I wonder. And it was your curiosity that led you into that space. And, we talk a lot within the community of the people around the Changemaker Pledge, which I know you've taken as well, about just get curious. Just look around you. There's people that you can help everywhere. And, I think it is wonderful what you're doing there because I can see this going global, Dan. I can see you're going to be a very busy man. Getting all of these places on board and expanding their understanding and knowledge to support people in communities, certainly across Wales and beyond. So thanks for coming and sharing.
No, not at all. And Simon, I thank you for being a champion of change yourself. Some of the guests you've had on your podcast have been incredible to listen to, and it's an honour for me to be amongst them, really, on this platform. I look forward to our future collaborations. But honestly, for those out there who feel a little lost, not just about their own conditions, but I mean in terms of developing a venture that can light their fire and be of service and make change happen, I would just say that until you find your purpose, always seek to find a purpose in everything that you do. That really stops any job from being monotonous or bleak or grey. And always be receptive to the inspiration that surrounds us, either in stories from your grandparents or chance conversations with people you might just meet. So there's a lot going on out there that people can really learn from in order for them to find their place and be the change makers that they would want to be in the world. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So, Dan, come on, you've listened to a few of the podcasts. You know what's coming next. What's that track that you keep coming back to or inspires you or, you just find irresistible throughout your life? What's the one you're going to put on the Change Show playlist?
Honestly, I would recommend that people listen to Bastille. And there's a song that wasn't a single, it was on their album. It's called Weight of Living Part 1. And it's such a beautiful song with important lyrics, I feel, around mental health and depression. But it's got a great kind of lift to the song that stops you from wallowing, and it gets you to that place of acceptance, which has been such a critical part of my journey. So thank you, Bastille, for producing such a fantastic song. It's always something I go back to when I need a little pick-me-up,
Brilliant. We'll add that to the links. Send over all your links, Dan. We'll get them attached to this video and the podcast. And good luck with everything. And we'll no doubt be in touch very soon as well. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Simon. All the best.
Okay, there you go. That was another episode even, of The Change Show with my special guest, Dan Newman. Baldilocks. Go and find him on social media and get involved, because I'm sure Dan would be really receptive to any ideas that you've got. Okay, we'll see you back here again next time.